Hi, and welcome back to Dogs Do Speak podcast with myself, Samantha Wayland. Well, with myself, Colin Spence, and Samantha Wayland. And today we have the wonderful Claire Lister-Huckle, who's coming along to talk about a topic that a lot of people probably will never have gone through and probably will never ever likely go through. But if you did, Claire is here to discuss what it's like when you have a household of more than one dog and things can go wrong, and how she has coped with that, and giving you some advice and some tips. So, please hit that subscribe button. Put my teeth in, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything that we put out when it's published. And now I'm going to hand you over to Claire, who's going to just tell us a little bit about herself and how she got into the industry and what she does. And then she will break into what happened and why she's here. Claire, over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on, Colin and Sam. So a little bit about me. So I have been working with animals in some way, shape, or form for a very long time. Lucky to have worked in a couple of zoos and things as well. And I have worked with a lot of dogs over the years. I've got a foundation degree in zoological management, a bachelor's degree in animal behaviour and welfare, and a postgraduate degree in animal behaviour and training. And I have run my own training and behavior business for 10 years now as well. So yeah, I've been around the industry, animals. I've worked with lots of different species as well, not just canids, but canids and dogs are my heart. So I always end up coming back to them no matter what I'm working with. So, I've got my own dogs. I've got Weimaraners. They are my breed. They are my heart dogs. They're my breed of choice. I currently have three. I've got Atom, who is 9.5, Mayat, who is 4, and Heka, who is 2.5. But I have had them for over 20 years. So these are just the three that I've got at the moment. And the boys are the reason why I'm here. And I just wanted to sort of talk about my life experience with them. Um, you kind of think about having a multi-dog household and whether it's going to be easy or not. And you generally think of having two dogs that are the same sex as being okay, or maybe not, depending on which sex you're going for. People would generally think that two female dogs together is going to be okay, two male dogs, not so much. But that's actually not the case. You can happily have two male dogs of the same sex living together. But whenever you get two dogs, doesn't matter if they're male, two female, you always have to have in the back of your mind that something may go wrong. And thinking about the causes of what has caused that thing to go wrong, or that relationship to go wrong. Is it because you introduced them wrong in the first place, or does something happen that triggers an incident that then everything goes to pot after that? So yeah, so I just want to sort of go through various different things, talk about what happened with me, what could happen with you, and maybe if you're a professional with your clients' dogs as well. Would you like me to just carry
So, so
on?
when you had Atom and Heka, and they were younger. So let's go back a few years or a year or so. What was their relationship like?
So yeah, so Atom obviously a little bit older, and I brought in Heka. We already had Mayat, so Mayat was like 18 months old then, and then Heka came along, and Heka, very different kind of dog. So Atom is sort of more sort of working gun dog. Mayat is a bit more working as well, very sort of high energy. And then Atom came along. Sorry, Heka came along. He's a show dog. His energy is very different. So when we came along, Atom has would I would say never been the world's most confident dog. He's very good, quite likes to sort of hold himself back, very restrained. Isn't the dog that will run in and start playing with other dogs. He's what I call the high and by dog. It took him about 48 hours to get used to Mayat being in the house when she first came along. So I thought, it's going to take him a little bit of time to ease into Hecka as well. And now initially he was very sort of standoffish, not so sure about him. And being a trainer and behaviorist, I set everything up. I had a separate puppy pen. And I, made sure that Atom had his space, and that Hecka had his space, and Maya had her space as well. And I introduced them very carefully. Did lots of sort of parallel training stuff so that Atom would see the value in this tiny little puppy. And within 2 weeks, they were sort of quite happy, settled. And I've got loads and loads of video footage of Atom with little baby Hecka. Hecka's climbing on top of him, sleeping on him. They're playing, they're mouth wrestling. They're doing all that lovely social behavior. There's grooming and things going on as well. So it was really, really lovely for quite a long time.
Was there sorry, was
sorry?
there an age that you started noticing the difference? Was it when hormones kicked in, or what was the sort of the trigger, do you think?
Being a large breed of dog, those hormones start to kick in a little bit later because they're slower maturing. So most people sort of think about, certainly with boys, if we've got behavioral issues in boys, then we're thinking about testosterone elevation. And we think that that starts happening around 6 months old. But I would say the process is either much slower or doesn't start so early on in our larger breed of dog, because at 6 months old, a large breed like a Weimaraner is still very much a puppy. They're nowhere near fully grown yet. Not even, they don't even look like an adolescent at that stage. So that adolescent stage tends to kick in more around a year old. So around about 18 months-ish is when I started to see some interesting behaviors happening between my boys. They would still play. They would still curl up together and sleep together. I could trade them together. Everything was okay. But I started to notice that Hecka's behavior in particular, if he would go to a particular dog bed and Atom looked at him, then Hecka's response might be to growl at him from across the room. And then that would elicit behavior from Atom as well, and that would put him on guard because he'd be like, "Oh God!" Because we had this. They are actually two entire male, so Atom is an entire male and Hecka is an entire male, and I kept Atom entire because I know that he's not the world's most confident dog, and actually that removal of testosterone can have a really negative effect on a dog's behavior. It affects the serotonin and dopamine levels in the dog, and I want drive in him because he was a working dog, and I want serotonin to keep him feeling happy. And if we remove testosterone, then that's going to affect what's happening with the HPA axis, so the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and that affects our dog's confidence and their anxiety levels. So if we start mucking around with those hormones and remove those hormones when we've got a dog that's anxious, then actually that can make that anxiety even worse. So I was like, okay, I know he's not the world's most confident dog. He's not the dog that's bombing in to say hello to everybody where I need to manage that behavior. He's a bit sort of like, I'll do my job, I'll be standoffish. When we've made friends, great. So I kept him intact, and that worked really, really nicely for him. He's never had any issues with any other dogs. Then along came Hecka, and we kind of started to see around 18 months this little bit of friction happening, and it was putting both dogs on edge. And that's when the hormone levels in Hecka were starting to reach their peak. So those teenage hormone testosterone levels were hitting the high point. And obviously in adolescence, when testosterone is the highest it's ever going to be in our adolescent dogs. And it doesn't just go whoop and stay really, really high. It kind of fluctuates. And it goes up and down throughout the day. And other things can affect their behavior in that time as well. So sleep is a massive one. In adolescence, our dogs do struggle a little bit more with sleep. Melatonin release is a little bit more delayed. Melatonin is released from the pineal gland, which is also where that tiny little bit of serotonin in the brain is also released. So it kind of, if we don't get enough sleep because we've got melatonin release, then the pineal gland, sorry, is probably not working all that well at that time, just through age and hormones and everything that's going on. So that can affect how tired, teasy they are, their arousal levels. They're not able to regulate their arousal levels. So when something happens they're not sure about, then they can become a little bit anxious about it, and then they're going to behave. And quite often that behaviour is all to do with the sympathetic nervous system. It's very just, fight or flight, or that kind of thing kicks in. They just immediately react, and they're not really thinking about what they're doing in the moment. So that's what we actually started to see a little bit of with the boys at home. So straight away, I was kind of like, okay, I need to make sure that any interactions that they have are really nicely managed. They're having really, all the experiences they have are nice and fun. We didn't have any scraps or anything. We made sure that they didn't have the opportunity to particularly guard anything, that if one was relaxing, then they weren't making direct eye contact with each other. So we had to move dog beds and things around just so that that pressure was taken off of them. But then sorry, Colin.
No, I was going to say, carry on. You carry on.
Yeah, but then, even though you put all of that sort of management in place, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to be okay. You still need to be quite vigilant of what's going on. And then something did go wrong. And I had taken my 3 dogs out for a walk one day. And Hector, being a young adolescent male, very boisterous, lots of energy, running around. I turned my back for a second. He was running around playing with my younger female, and I assume, I never saw it happen. I think he must have jumped onto Atom or hit him or did something, and Atom turned around and told him off and said, don't do that. And it was a normal dog correction. Okay, so dogs, if they want to correct each other, that's okay. So long as the correction isn't overly extreme, then it makes sense. They correct each other. They understand each other far better than we do. We shouldn't be correcting them. They can correct each other. They speak dog. We don't. So he corrected him. He sort of went, little air snap. Normally everything would be done. On this occasion, probably the arousal levels were so high because they were out, they were walking, that Atom chose on that occasion to not take the correction in the way that he previously had done. And he fired back at Atom. So then Atom then had to defend himself. And I've got 2 dogs that are both quite big having a fight in the middle of a field in the Mendips. Physically, I could not get those 2 dogs apart. There was very little I could do. So it was a case of, trying to get leads on them, drag them to something so that I could tie one onto onto something, and then, get them apart in some way so that I could pull them apart, then walk some back to the car and walk some away. But I couldn't get clip leads on them. So I do carry slip leads in my car because you never know when they're going to come in handy. So I was walking back to my car. I just left them. I was like, there's nothing I can do. I can't move them. I'm either going to come back and one of them is, very seriously injured, or, what happens, I will deal with it in the moment, because right now there's not a lot else I can do. So I took Mayat back to the car, got my slip leads out, and actually after I'd gone back to the car, turned around, was walking back, the boys had actually broken away from each other. So my not being there and removing myself and Mayat coming away, they'd actually kind of separated and gone, oh, hang on a minute, Mum's not here now. And they separated away from each other, and they were running back towards the car and following Mayat and I. They were kind of eyeballing each other, but they came back. I threw them separately in the car, and we went straight off to the vets to get everything cleaned up and get them both on pain medication, everything cleaned up nicely, antibiotics and everything, because, God knows what has gone on there. It was a lot.
How did you feel in that moment as well? Because that must have been very stressful for you. Like, your adrenaline, your everything for you must have, not just for the dogs, but for you, that must have been horrific.
Yeah. So for me, I'll be honest with you, the way that I react in those sorts of in those sorts of moments. So I am neurospicy. Don't I'm not worried about admitting that. I am neurospicy. In those high adrenaline moments, that's actually when my brain focuses itself, and I just go boom straight into what do I need to do. So in that moment, I was actually quite calm. I, threw them in the car. There was blood everywhere. The Hecka had blood coming out of his nose. Atom had blood coming out of his ears. It was a bit of a mess. Threw them in the car, rang my vet, said, "This is what's happening. I'm coming in." They were like, "Yeah, that's absolutely no problem at all. Just bring them straight in, one at a time. We'll get them sorted out." So in that moment, I was actually, I was full of adrenaline, but my mind was focused on what I needed to do. Not everybody is going to behave like that. I get that. Some people would just completely panic and wouldn't know what to do. But in that moment, I was just like, right, I need to go and get leads. I need to separate them. I need to get them both in the car. Then I need to get them to the vets. So in that kind of, having somebody that's neurospicy in that sort of situation can fall into, can sort of play into the good thing for you, because they're focused. They know exactly what they need to do. So that's what happened. I was just, in that moment, I was completely focused and calm, and I just did what I needed to do. It was actually after all of that had taken place that the adrenaline comes down. You start thinking about what's going on, and you kind of go into a little bit of panic then. So I get why my clients would feel like that as well, why they would panic when their dogs have been fighting. They just, you catastrophize in that moment. Oh my gosh, they fought, they hate each other. We now have to be aware of this. They're never going to be able to live together. And in a lot of cases, with a lot of clients that I've seen, they will never work on building that relationship back up again. They will keep those dogs separate for the rest of their lives. So we end up in 100% management. And you end up with one dog that lives at the front of the house, one dog that lives at the back of the house. You're walking the dog separately forever. They can't even see each other because they just want to kill each other. Or we don't give them the opportunity to even see each other because we're so scared that something is going to happen. And that's understandable. The dogs have undergone some trauma. And the owner has undergone trauma in that moment as well. So you're always going to have this in the back of your mind. So yeah, and it is quite scary. And I went through that process. After, I'd come home, I did put some management in place. I put some pens up because I'm thinking, I've got cortisol levels and adrenaline levels that are really, really high. I've got pain going on here. I need to manage these boys really, really carefully now so that they cannot get to each other. To make sure that they've got the opportunity to heal, and then I can, see what's going on with the relationship, fix it, what else I need to do. And I did. I put puppy pen panels up. I put visual blockers up. I didn't want them to not see each other completely because I didn't want there to be that just total disconnect in their relationship. I still wanted them to be able to be around each other. So I thought, okay, this is the way I'm going to go. And they did. They slept. They were on painkillers. They slept and, healed themselves. And everything was kind of okay for a few days. And we talk about cortisol levels and things like that. And cortisol takes about 72 hours to sort of come down to basal levels. So we're talking like 4 days. And then on day 5, something else happened. And I had a barrier that was going across the middle of my kitchen from sort of the hallway door to the back door, so that I could have one on one side, one on the other. I could let one out of the kitchen door to go to the toilet, let that one back in, and let the other one out. They could still see each other through that. But something triggered on that day, and over the top of that barrier, they went for it again. So, 5 days later, they had their second fight. And that actually, we got them separated. My next door neighbor actually helped me with that one, trying to separate 2 big dogs. We ended up, we got a door between them. I had one out in the garden, one in the house, then one in the living room, separated out, cleaned them up. They were already on painkillers and antibiotics from the previous fight. So I had all of that in place anyway and just kind of cleaned them up. There weren't any major wounds on that one, thankfully, apart from on me, where I did sustain a little wound on my arm where I kind of got in the way while I was trying to separate them. So, it's bearing that in mind. If you've got 2 dogs fighting, if you're going to put yourself in that sort of situation, you might come out injured as well. if you've got minors in the house and you end up going to hospital for tetanus or antibiotics or anything, they do have to report that to the police. So the police will then come around and they'll want to assess your dogs. So you do have to bear that sort of thing in mind if you've got minors living in the house or vulnerable people in the house and things like that as well. For me, just me and my husband, so adults will deal with the situation. So after that, I sort of went, this cannot carry on. So I went into 100% management mode. So near the twain shall meet, I completely separated them. And then I sat down and thought about what's going on. So we've got elevated hormone levels in Hecka. Is that having an effect on his confidence levels? I've got Atom's confidence levels and the fact that they've now got previous trauma. They have had 2 fights. Every time they look at each other, they're potentially going to be growling at each other, going, "You're really not happy about you." So I've created, there is conflict. I haven't created it, but there is no conflict there. And this trauma and learned behavior now. So I need to completely think about how I'm going to change that. What do I need to do? So there are lots of different things that we can look at. So we could look at castration. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of full castration without testing out chemical castration first. So we've got this lovely little supralorin implant, and it will reduce testosterone levels for about 6 months. So that's there's 2 implants. There's a larger one and a smaller one, and it's an implant that goes into the scruff of the neck as a sort of a microchip sized needle, and it reduces testosterone levels. But initially, we see that the testosterone levels rise in about the first 2 weeks of being on the implant. So we can see a lot of behavior issues in those first 2 weeks. And then the testosterone levels will start to reduce. So that's where we were with them. Let's get chemical castration going with Atom and see what happens there. And we'll do the same with Hecka. So we chemically castrated both the boys at the same time just to see what that would do. Yeah. So it was a lot. And we had puppy pen barriers all over the house as well. So we were alternating dogs. One dog would go in the living room, one dog would go upstairs. That dog could then go out into the kitchen and garden to do whatever they needed to do. Then that dog would come back in, go into the living room, and then the dog that was upstairs could come down, go out into the garden, do what they need. So these dogs were not seeing each other at all. 100% management.
Can we circle back just a little bit? When you were talking about breaking the fights up, obviously in social media at the minute, there have been some videos of people trying to break up fights. And we've seen many methods used, and I'm sure everybody will know exactly what videos I'm talking about. What is the best way to break up a dog fight? Is there a safe way of breaking up a dog fight? In your opinion?
Is there a safe? In my opinion, I don't think there's a 100% safe way of breaking up a dog fight. No. Every dog is different. They're having their different experiences. The skills of the person that's doing it as well make a difference. You kind of have to look at the dog you've got in front of you. You know, breaking up a dog fight if you've got 2 little tiny chihuahuas, literally could be just pick them up, take them apart. Breaking up a dog fight if you've got a 35-kilogram dog and a 38-kilogram dog, which is what I've got, you're not pulling that apart. So in that sort of instance, then you have to look at other methods. So what I actually did with those boys, I did actually use the choke method. So putting a slip lead high up around the dog's neck, choking them out for a couple of seconds, and then that gives you the opportunity, when they gasp for the air, it gives you the opportunity to move them away and separate them. You do have to be fast, and you have to have 1 person per dog. Because if you don't, the one dog, you've got one dog and you've managed to separate that one dog, the other dog is still coming at you. So if you're that one person on their own and you've got 2 dogs to separate, that's going to be difficult. Now, I have done it where I've got one dog on a slip lead, and I've managed to get that one dog outside of a door, and the other dog is trying to break through that door because they're obviously trying to fight. And then I've just had to shut that door and have one dog outside, one dog inside until things calm down again. Then I can get in, move the dog inside to a secure place, and then I can bring the dog that's outside into that secure place. So it's yeah, you do have to make sure if you've got two dogs fighting in a home that there is one person per dog to help you separate things. Because if you get it wrong, then that dog is still coming at you, and the one that you've got hold of may redirect onto you as well. So if you're going to do anything, you have to be aware that you're putting yourself in danger and that you could potentially get bitten.
Yeah.
And yeah, the other dogs, it could be the dog that you've got hold of, or it could be the other dog that's still coming at you. So you need two dogs. You need to make sure that you've got something that you can get between them, permanent barrier that they cannot get through, which can be interesting when you've got dogs that know how to open doors. So you have to bear that sort of thing in mind as well. And I definitely have.
Claire, how long was the period where there was this unrest? How long did that go on for?
The period of unrest, very interesting. So the period of unrest went through some stages. So obviously I went into panic mode. Oh my God, I'm going to have to rehome my youngest dog because he's the youngest. He's the show prospect. He's the one that's going to be the easiest to rehome. I am not in a million years going to rehome Atom. I adore the bones of that dog. Um, and Maya, again, 4 years old, probably would have been relatively easy to rehome because she's a little bitch. But I was like, no, no, no. He gets, there's no conflict between her and Atom. I could keep the two of them. It's going to have to be Hecka. So I went into that panic mode of, oh, I need to rehome him. And I did. I contacted his breeder from, his dam breeder and his dad breeder as well. So I spoke to everybody. And then that was me in panic mode that, oh my God, I need to rehome him. Then after I'd got out of panic mode and my brain had, returned to logical thinking, I thought, no, 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 I have taken on all of these dogs and I love them all as my family. And I'm responsible for dealing with this. And I do have the skills and I do have the support network to help me do this. So I am going to do it. And I did. I am really lucky that I had a really good support network. Colin was around at the time. There's a few other people. Danielle Beck. I spoke to Danielle Beck, Ros Pooley. So there's some really big names there that I am so glad that I know because I could just bounce thoughts off of them and they will tell me if I'm on, if I'm thinking straight or not. 9 times out of 10 I was thinking straight, thankfully. And I knew what I was doing. I just needed somebody to tell me that what I was thinking was right, and that's absolutely fine. Even as a professional, things happen, and things going wrong should always be in the back of your mind as a professional or as just a pet owner. So I had it in the back of my mind with my boys that something might happen, but I was never 100% sure. When it did happen, I guess I was kind of prepared for the fact that it might. So it meant that I was, already thinking, oh, and then when it came around and I started panicking and thinking I need to rehome this dog, my brain then went, no, 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 we can do this. We can fix this. Let's do it. Let's just do it. So out came lots of puppy pens. Out came the plan of keeping them separated. Off I went to my vet and had a conversation with my vet about what I was going to do. And initially, we looked at using gabapentin and trazodone. Well, initially it was just gabapentin without the trazodone, but we put him on the gabapentin just to see if that would help just to chill them out a little bit. And actually, it had absolutely no effect. They were both put on it for a while. Absolutely no effect on either of my boys. They were on painkillers and things at the time as well. So if we were on that for about a month and it did nothing. And during that time, I started going into a process of counter conditioning and desensitization as well. So yeah, we've got distance, and I was doing it in my house as well, so it was very controlled. And I was trying to keep arousal levels down, so everything was nice and calm as well. We had adaptil diffusers in the house to try and keep everything nice and calm. I had already tried using calming supplements and things. Again, didn't do anything in this situation. The gabapentin didn't do anything. So then another conversation had to happen with my vet about where to go from there. So we decided to try trazodone, which is a selective serotonin antagonist, I think. So a SARI medication. It's quite fast acting. It gets serotonin circulating around the body for a little bit longer, which can help to really, really calm the dog down. So we tried that for a while, and actually it did really chill the boys out a little bit, which gave me the opportunity to carry on with the counter conditioning and desensitization, which is literally really nice high value rewards. You're seeing each other and you're going to get something really, really nice. And that was happening in the home. I also had to do exactly the same when we were outside. You can't just counter condition desensitize your dogs and bring and fix their relationship inside the home if you expect to be able to take these dogs out into public and be walked together. So I had to go through exactly the same process out and about as well. Now, I don't have a dog trainer husband. He is not a dog trainer. So where, as a professional, do you go when you have intra-dog household aggression, this relationship breakdown, and there's only one of you and you need to be able to manage both dogs separately for a while? Well, thankfully, I've got a really, really good friend. Her name's Jo, and she has her own secure dog field. And she stepped in and was an absolute gem. And she, with our walkie-talkies on, and her big 6.5 acre field, went in there with those two boys. She had a load of rewards, I had a load of rewards, and we started working on counter conditioning, desensitizing, marketing and rewarding for calm behavior with those two dogs over a period of months. So what I was doing at home was happening outside in a secure field as well. So everything was as contained and managed as possibly could be. I also muzzle train my dogs as a matter of course. So when all of this kicked off, when it came to bringing them together, either, you know, when they're seeing each other in the house or when they were seeing each other outside, they were already wearing muzzles. They were comfortable with that. It wasn't a big deal for them. So when the muzzles came along, they were just kind of like, oh, it's fine. It's just, you know, shoving treats and things through the muzzles. So making sure that you've got dogs that are comfortable with that. And I say I'd muzzle train my dogs as a matter of course. I've got large breed dogs. If they were to get hurt, I don't want to drag my dog into the vets and my dog be in so much pain that it bites somebody accidentally. I want them to see a muzzle and go, that muzzle in this moment isn't a scary thing because we've seen it and it's had what my friend Liz, bless her, calls them the treat basket on their face. So they see it as a really positive thing. So even though they might be really, really in pain and quite scared in that moment, the treat basket isn't going to add to that kind of stress. So we went through all of that. They were muzzle trained anyway. So we started doing counter conditioning desensitization in a secure field with my friend Jo. And I was also doing it on my own at home with my dogs as well. My husband, bless him, he did try a little bit. But when you've got somebody that you're working with who isn't a dog trainer, and you know exactly the process that you're going through in your brain, their frustration levels can elevate, your frustration levels can elevate. It's like that analogy of you don't ever teach your partner to learn to drive, do you? Because the relationship is very different. It's different if you've got a client and a trainer and you're advising somebody to do it. His mind in that moment was not there to listen to me telling him what to do. So that was, you know, so I was like, okay, this is just not going to work. I'm going to have to do everything on my own at home. And my friend Jo is going to help me when we're out and about. And actually that was okay because I formulated my plan on how I was going to do that. Puppy pens all over the house, visual barriers, you know, blankets and things over there so that they couldn't see each other through them. And again, you know, you start work with your distance and high value rewards as well. I'm thinking about how you're going to deliver those rewards. Now, initially, I had a total brain fart, I admit to it. And I'd be with one dog at one end of the room and I'd be throwing treats for the other dog. And that was not good on the old shoulders. And then I had a moment of clarity and I remembered that I've actually got a remote treat and train. So I managed to get that one out and I started doing that. So we always start with distance. I have baby gates put in. I've got a dog gate at the bottom of my stairs that goes across the hallway. We had a baby gate at the bottom of the stairs, one at the top of the stairs. We've got what we call a barn door in the kitchen anyway. So we've got the door that comes across the bottom and then the top one. So I had that there as well. So I kind of had, you know, multiple airlock systems going on throughout my house. We also have the kitchen, which is a kitchen diner separated with puppy pen barrier as well. So multiple times throughout the day, I would be rotating my dogs around. So one would get to be at the back of the house with Mayat, while the other one was at the front of the house. Then the one in the living room would be locked in the living room. The one in the kitchen would have to go upstairs into the bedroom and be locked in up there. Then I could let the one in the living room out to go into the kitchen, and then lock all that down. And then the one in the bathroom could go in the bedroom, sorry, could come downstairs and be in the living room area. So it was a lot of really, really careful management. Solo walks. Actually, the boys were walked separately, which was fine because that meant that we still had our nice relationship. They got to be nice and calm. I could walk Mayat with either of the boys, and that was okay. But even she needed her one-to-one time as well, because dealing with the stress of those two boys was quite a lot for her. So I ended up doing lots of walking with those three dogs and doing lots of one-on-one stuff with all three of them. That probably strengthened the relationship that I have with them. And when we were doing the sort of the counter conditioning stuff, help with their trust in what the process, the process that was happening, and their trust in me. So yeah, so because I had the dogs on trazodone, we knew that trazodone was effective, so we actually switched on to Reconcile, which is fluoxetine, and that's Prozac for dogs, basically. It's a longer acting medication. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks to build up to therapeutic effect. So in that time, you'll sometimes see some side effects. And we didn't see any in Hecker. He took to it absolutely fine. In Atom, we did have some side effects. He would have panic attacks, and actually giving the trazodone on top of that just to chill him out in that moment actually really, really helped. For about 2 weeks we had that, and then he settled down, and he's absolutely fine. He was fine on it then after that, and actually that helps to support him. He, as we already know, was a slightly more anxious dog. Maybe his testosterone levels just were never that high, which is why he was a little bit more anxious anyway. But giving him that sort of doggy Prozac, that Reconcile, actually helped to support him through that learning process. Also giving him that same medication to Hecker again helped to support him through the learning process. They're going through lots of different hormonal changes, and there's lots of anxiety going on. So the medication doesn't sedate them or take any edge off of the feelings. It just it helps the serotonin in their system circulate a little bit longer, helps them to focus and concentrate and accept the process of change. Now, you could potentially do that without using medication, but it would be a much longer process, and you would potentially hit a brick wall at some point where you couldn't, push past it. The medication just kind of relaxes them, opens them up to that experience, and helps them to become more resilient and to settle into it. And it took 7 months of lots of management, of going through a process of having the airlock system there. I am in the middle and I've got dogs on either side. They're looking at each other, and I'm marking and rewarding them just for looking at each other, so that when they look at each other, they see something of value in each other. And that, and we're talking high value rewards as well. The JR Pet Foods pate, cheeses, homemade, really tasty, fishy treats and things like that. All the really good, stinky, high value stuff was coming out. I was just, throwing the good stuff at them because I wanted them, whenever they saw each other, to associate seeing each other with getting something that was really, really nice. I'm changing the emotional side of things there. Whenever I see you, I get something that's really good. There is a positive to you. And actually, when we're introducing puppies, when I introduced Hecker as a puppy, I did exactly the same thing. And everything was okay at that point, but I was having to go through it in a different sense now. And it was a much slower process because there was much more hanging on it. So slow process, yes. And we're not talking I could stand there and do an hour of this every single day. We're talking maybe once a day I could do 15 minutes of this, and then afterwards they'd have to go off with a chewy or a licky mat or a Kong, because then we get that it's a little bit, they're going to be anxious of looking at each other, even though they're getting nice rewards. We've got that nice distance. But afterwards, I want them to go, okay, that was a little bit stressful, but now I can calm down straight away and I get something that's absolutely amazing. I don't have to look at that other dog now, but I get something that's really, really nice. So I did that. I did that for months and months.
Claire,
And yes.
a lot of this is when you're actually in the home. What was the management plan for leaving the home or even going to sleep?
Management plan for, well, leaving the home was the door. There were multiple doors between them, and actually my barn door, my kitchen barn door, I'd have two dogs in the back, one at the front. That kitchen barn door has actually got a deadlock on it. So I'd have, some at the front, some at the back, and the deadlock on. So they couldn't actually get through that door. And it's a solid oak. It's an outdoor door, which is in my kitchen because I was really finicky about what I wanted in that area. So it's a solid oak door with a deadlock on it. So when that was locked, nothing was getting through that unless they could turn that. And it's quite stiff. I mean, Atom is quite adept at doing that, but it was quite stiff. So I've got this door here, but then here I also had the baby gate, so the dog baby gate, which is about 5 foot tall. So there was the dog baby gate just there, and then in the kitchen on the other side, there was another sort of area of no man's land there, and then we had the puppy pen barrier, and then there are two dog sofas in because I've got like a kitchen diner. So then the dogs would be on that side, and then the back door would be locked. So there was kind of two areas of no man's land that they could potentially get into if they jumped over, but then there was also that big heavy oak door with a deadlock on it so that they couldn't get through when I was not there. At night, so for the first few months, I was actually sleeping on the sofa with Atom and Mayat. And Hecka would sleep upstairs with my husband. So for a while, that was what was going on. But then I was like, I need my bed. This cannot happen. I need to be able to sleep. They need to be able to sleep. How are we going to do this? So then though Atom, I had tried crate training him when he was younger. He did not accept it. But I was like, in this moment, we need to go through it again. So a big crate came out, a big, very solid Savick old school crate came out in the kitchen, just opened it up in that section of the kitchen where the dogs are, would throw treats in there, would put food in there. There was nice blankets and bedding in there. We covered it over. I didn't do any specific training for a while. I just put it there. I just wanted them to habituate to it, to kind of go in there and see nice things. And it was just part of the furniture for them. And then when I actually came to actually shaping them into it and getting them used to it, they both accepted it really, really quickly, actually. During that time, it meant that I could then order another crate. So I had a second crate come in, and I put one crate here in my office just behind my desk, and the other crate went into my bedroom. So Atom was in my bedroom, Hecka was in here, and in here, because he was in this separate room, I actually had a camera on him as well, so an indoor Wi-Fi camera, so I could see what he was doing. And they took to that really, really nicely. And they do actually still sleep in their crates. The crate doors are completely open all the time, and they just go in their crates at bedtime now and settle down. They kind of like having their own space. If they want to, they can come out, they can sleep wherever they like, because obviously we are back together again now. So yeah, so that was what, really, really helped. So management at night meant they went in their crates, I could lock them in. And I also had locking carabiners on the latches as well. So the carabiner would go on, I would screw that on. So if they did push and managed to knock the door locks at any point, the locking carabiner would stop them from getting out. So there was that element of safety there. And they were also in separate rooms. So I could shut that door over there, and there was a door as well as the two crates between them. So it was high level management security going on, because I couldn't have them getting at each other and having another fight. So yeah, so that was what would happen. So they do that every night. One would go into his bed, the other would go into his bed. They wouldn't see each other, and then the next day we go through the whole process of going through the counter conditioning again.
That was some planning. That must have been one hell of a stressful 7, 8 months. Finishing off, what are they like now? How do you feel now as
So, I mean, that is only half the process. There was still a lot more of it that went into it. Taking them to other locations, walking them with my husband, the use of long lines, letting them actually get together, parallel walking. There was so much that went into it. Now, so that was 7 months of intense work. And I had my very structured plan. I knew exactly what I was doing. I'm a professional, and I had other professionals that I could bounce ideas off of as well. So, and I put a lot of work into it. I understand how my clients feel when they say they're very daunted by it, and that it is very difficult to try and fit it all in and do it. Even though it may only be 15 minutes, it's quite stressful, and not everybody is capable of doing that. So I understand why people go into 100% management and never come out of it. But yes, after 7 months of really hard work, we took them to Cornwall for a week in Cornwall, and we gradually got them back together again up on the moors in Cornwall and on the beaches. And then, over a period of time, we just this was wearing muzzles as well. And then we just started taking the muzzles off, letting them be around each other and sniffing. And that was in October last year. And since October last year, we have had no problems at all. The medication is gone. Which is great. I mean, Heck as a show dog, he's competing. He's qualified for Crofts again for next year. Atom, it just kind of does his thing. He's a gun dog. He does a bit of picking up here and there. Likes doing his gun dog training. Mayat just does her thing. But they're all three of them are back together. We called the whole thing in the house with all of the management, the pens and everything. We called it Jurassic Bark, because it was like living in Jurassic Park with these massive cages everywhere and having to have airlock systems and walking through things. But yeah, so Jurassic Bark is gone. Like I said, they do still sleep in their crates, but that's because they seem happy there. And you go to bed, they actually choose to go to their crates. So I'm not going to remove that from them. And actually, certainly for Hecka, because he's still an adolescent at 2.5, having his own space that he can go to sleep, giving him his own space, he can rest there properly during the night. I think that's useful and that's good for him. And also, Atom being a little bit older, he probably likes his own space as well. And then, Mayat kicks them out of their crates sometimes, and if she wants to sleep in there. That's just, the joys of a little bitch. But
so what advice would you give to whether it's a trainer or a dog owner that find themselves in this particular situation? Would one of the first things you'd be suggesting they do is finding a good certified professional?
Oh gosh, yes, yeah. I mean, even myself as a professional, I went to other people. I had people that I could bounce ideas off of. I had people that I could talk to, and I did. I did speak to those people, and I just said, "This is my plan. Do you think I'm on the right track? Do you agree with this? Would you do anything slightly differently?" I don't think anyone actually came back to me and said no. I did, bless her. My friend Jo was, at some points I wanted to push, and she was like, maybe don't push, because you do. I mean, I get it. We're the fast food generation. Clients want to push. They want things done really, really quickly. So some days I wanted to push, and she was like, let's just hold it off a little bit. Let's not push too much. And then there were days where I said, I want to push, and I did push, and actually it paid off. That comes from experience, knowing the dogs that you're working with as well, being able to read their body language and how they're responding to everything. And as a professional, whether they're your dogs or not, you very quickly start to pick up on their personalities, their behaviors, their body language. So having that person there from the outside looking in that can manage your emotions, manage as a client or as the professional, from in my case, that kind of knew the plan, had it all stretched out in front of me, ready to go. Having those outside people say, slow down, let's not do this, let take a step back, let's do it this way, was actually really useful for me as well, because I still wanted to do things sometimes a little bit too quickly. So yeah, find yourself a professional. if you might be able to find someone that's gone through something like this. I have worked with clients that have had these issues as well. Not only multi-dog households, I would say it happens quite a lot in multiple bitch households as well. The hormones are slightly different. They're driven by sort of estrogen, progesterone, and things like that because of seasons and things. Females as well, they can be less forgiving when they have those traumatic experiences. So it can be a little bit more of a slower process for those females than it can be with males. Males, something about them quite often are a little bit more laid back. But either way, a qualified professional who can come in, who can help you, have conversations with vets as well about things like chemical castrations, the use of medication. You don't have to rely on medication for the whole life of the dog, just for a period of time, just to support them emotionally through that change, and be prepared for it to be a long process. Quite frankly, the process that I went through took me 7 months. I think that's quite fast.
Yeah.
I would not expect that from my average client that was going through this. 12 months plus for anything like this, because they're not me. I knew exactly what I was doing. I went through it and I just went boom, boom, boom. And I was very quite clinical about how it happened once I'd set everything out. Clients are never going to be like that. They're never going to be that clinical in how they do things. So 12 months plus for that kind of process. But definitely get yourself the support of a professional to help you.
Claire, that was. I have never been through it. I've worked with the odd client here and there in certain situations, not as intense as yours. And I touch wood, I hope I never have to. But what you did was absolutely amazing. I remember following the story and us having our chats, what have you. And boy, you needed all the strength, and boy, did you have that in abundance. You needed all that help from upstairs, the Lord. You had that in abundance, and obviously people around you supporting you and talking with you. So all I can say is well done, you. And anyone that's watching this, speaking to Claire, if ever you go through a situation like this, I think it'll be very beneficial to you and your dogs. So, Claire, if people want to use your services, how can they find you?
So I have a new Facebook page actually, and I'm in the process of sorting out my website, my new website. So it's just Clair Litster-Huckle, animal. Oh, can't remember what it's called now. Animal behaviour training and education consultant. So you can find me there. You can find me on the Dog Training College's Find a Dog Trainer website as well. And you can also contact Bristol Dog School as well. And that website is still up and running. And I've got my email address as well, which is Clair, CLAIR at bristoldogschool.co.uk. So you can contact me. And I'm on Instagram and I'm on TikTok, Clair _ animal behaviorist on TikTok. It's exactly the same on Instagram. So you can contact me on those social platforms as well. And I'm more than happy to sit down and have a conversation with people about this kind of issue, because I get it. There's a lot of emotion for the owner as well as the dog in there. But
Claire?
I would just say, you sort of talking about going through everything. I am that trainer that put it on social media. I didn't hold back. There are a lot of people that would, because they're professionals, wouldn't put it on social media that there is a problem. I put it on my Facebook. I had it in the back of my mind that there's the possibility whenever you live in a multi-dog household that something might happen. When it did happen, I put it on social media because I wanted people to know that it did happen to me. I didn't necessarily do anything wrong. Would there be things that I would change? Possibly. But I didn't do anything particularly wrong, but I did want people to see the fact that it did go wrong and I was working on it, and then the changes and the progression. And now it's actually 12 months. It happened at the end of May last year. We're now 12 months down the line. And after those 7 months of hard work, we have no issues. And I wanted people to see that and to see my dogs out and about. And there's a little photograph of them. Oh, there somewhere. There it is. There we go. That's a little photograph of them that I took last week. A lovely buttercup filled field. They were running around having fun playing, and we don't have any issues. Love those three.
Claire, thank you. This was an absolutely wonderful podcast.
Yeah.
Listening to your expertise and your knowledge and your experience. So thank you very much for coming along today. Yeah, amazing. That's it from Dogs Do Speak. That's it from myself, Colin Spence, Samantha Wayland, and the wonderful Claire. So please do hit that subscribe button and don't miss anything we publish. Until the next time, bye for now.